Hello everybody, I'm Catriona Morten, I'm a sensory motor psychotherapist, and today I'd like to talk to you about what I believe is the myth of it has to get worse before it gets better in therapy. But before we get into any of that, if you're enjoying these videos, then give us a like and please subscribe to our channel because it just helps us get out there and help more of you. This notion that I hear a lot, that it has to get worse before it gets better when you come into therapy. I don't agree with that at all. And it's something that really puts a lot of people off going into therapy in the first place, because they'll say, but I already feel terrible. I already can't cope. I already feel overwhelmed or terrified or whatever it is that they're experiencing. I don't want that to get any worse because I don't think I'd be able to cope. And because this is something that I hear it all the time, it's a sort of universal truth that I don't subscribe to. When people come into therapy to see me, then the first thing that I'm going to do with them is, one, get a sense of what it is they're struggling with and why they've come into therapy, the things that they want to work on and the things they want to change, and a bit of their background history. Well, not always, but quite often. And then to get a sense of them, how their nervous system works, how they get affected when they're anxious or when they start to get frightened, what actually starts to physically happen in their body, how do they dissociate, how does anxiety show up, how it makes their lives difficult and how it makes them feel like they can't cope and they feel completely overwhelmed. Until we have resources that help the body to regulate, to be able to come down, to come out of your sympathetic and into your parasympathetic, then we're not going to go into really difficult material. Because if people are coming and they're already struggling and they don't know what's happening to them, it feels almost impossible to get out of the house, everyday tasks are really difficult, there's no way I'm going to go into the traumas and what's happened to them before I know that I can get them stabilised, so that when they do start to get dysregulated, then they know how they can manage and regulate their nervous system, instead of it just getting worse and worse and worse until they're completely out of the window, they're completely overwhelmed or dissociated. That's not the goal in therapy. There's usually an epicentre, and that will be the thing that happened to them, the real kind of core of the trauma that lies in the past. If we just go straight into that, then they're either going to dissociate or they're going to get so completely overwhelmed that they're not going to be able to cope and manage. Their brains are going to go offline and it's just going to feel like a horrible experience, or they just get unbelievably upset and it takes a long time for them to recover. There's no way that I'm going to risk having somebody come in, get worse, and then leave, see you next week. What we want to be able to do is move towards, I think of it as kind of rings of moving inwards. And at each stage, we have to be able to manage, to regulate, and to feel like this is containable, it's workable, not unworkable and uncontainable. And so we do that by, when we start to notice how the body's being affected, finding a resource. We do experiments, we do all sorts of things using strength or connection, touch, movement, that helps the body to regulate, to come back down again. When we can do that, then we know it's safe to move on to the next phase. And this first phase of treatment is often called stabilization. Finding your resources, finding how you can regulate yourself, knowing that you've got the capacity to cope before we go into some really difficult material. I have quite a lot of people come to me, I've had quite a few recently, who have been taken to the epicentre, sometimes in EMDR, and they don't have the capacity to cope. All sorts of things come up that were buried, all sorts of things come up that were just, they knew that it happened, but they weren't really intrusive memories and images all the time that just take our nervous system down. And those people have been left extremely dysregulated, much, much worse, that that's not how therapy should work. When people come to see me, even on the first session, I want to be able to give them something that they can take away and use, something really useful and practical, something that really helps them work with their body, with their nervous system, so they've got some kind of tools that they can go away with, not just unravelling them and leaving them feeling like the bottom's fallen out of their world. That shouldn't be the goal of therapy, and it's certainly not my goal when people come to work with me. Often, if we've had an awful lot of things happen to us growing up, or it's happened over a consistent period of time, then one of the things that we do is we learn to cut off from our emotions, not to feel sensations, not to feel emotions. A lot of people do this. It's very effective, so we don't feel, but we don't feel joy or anything else otherwise. And often these people don't even have a sense of if they're hungry or if they're too cold, too hot. Disconnect from that. Sometimes when we reconnect, so we become aware of our body, we can have some feelings in it, and then we can start to be able to connect with emotions. People will feel different. They'll feel a bit more impacted by things. They'll notice that they're affected by things. But that's a gradual process that starts to wake up. It's not like just flicking a switch and bang, on it comes. And what people will realise is that things do affect them. They do feel sad, but they also feel happy as well. That's a change that we can get accustomed to. That's not things getting worse before they get better. When you come into therapy, the therapist should be able to help you understand what's happening to you and why this is happening. Your body's not just doing this for no reason to make your life difficult. And when we can have that understanding and have the tools and the resources that help us manage our body, if your breathing gets really tight and it feels like you're going to have a panic attack, does it help just breathing out to the count of 12 or as far as you can? Your in-breath will take care of itself. Everybody's different, and the tools that work for one person won't work for another. It's about finding these things that work before you go into the really difficult stuff. And if your therapist isn't giving you things that you can actually use that are going to make things better, then I would be very wary of letting them take you down a route into your trauma that's, happened 15 years ago. It should feel safe and it should feel contained. It should feel as though the space is safe, the therapist is safe, and you feel safe in that process. Because only then is it going to feel okay to go into some difficult things. And, the real benefit of working with the body and doing any somatic experiencing work or sensory motor work is that you're going to be aware of anything that's dysregulating before it just takes you over. And when we can do this kind of work, then we can sort our nervous system, our body out, all the things that are happening to us, as well as the story. There's a little cat behind me. Oh, he's so cute. Hello, Percy. Nice to put in an appearance. And that therapeutic relationship is absolutely vital so that you feel safe enough to do the work. My thing is, right from the start, either from an assessment, a consultation, or the first session, it shouldn't feel as though things are worse. You should be able to have an understanding of what's happening. Your therapist should be able to tell you what's going on for you and your body and why, and help you find ways of coping and managing. Shouldn't make you feel like you can't cope and you can't manage. Otherwise, people won't come back into therapy. So I hope for anybody out there that does feel like they want therapy, that they need therapy, that they would like to find a therapist, then find a therapist that definitely doesn't go along with that premise of, oh yes, it's going to get much worse before it gets better. Because if you're already feeling like life is difficult enough as it is, then that's not going to be helpful for you. So I hope that helps to reassure some people that therapy doesn't have to be like that. In my opinion, it shouldn't be like that. So I really hope that helps. So again, if you've enjoyed this video, if you like what we're doing, then give us a like and subscribe to our channel, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye!